Icelocked here with Nocturne Gaming, back with more Legends of Idleon, and today we're taking a look at an Elemental Sorcerer build. For the Elemental Sorcerer, our main focus should be material farming. This character excels at getting large quantities of materials that you need to progress alchemy, stamps, and even farming materials that you need to craft gear, depending on the stage of the game that you're at. There are 4 primary stats that we need to be able to get the most out of our Elemental Sorcerer, and a little bit later in the guide we'll go through the worlds and talk about your overall account progression to get the most out of your Elemental Sorcerer. So the first stat that we're going to be looking at is going to be drop rarity. This is the primary stat that we need to get the most that we can. There are a ton of sources throughout the game for drop rarity and drop rate, and we'll go over most if not all of them as we go through the guide. The second thing and the third thing kind of go hand in hand. This is going to be increasing your total damage and increasing your multi-kill. The reason these go hand in hand is the more damage you have, the more multi-kill tiers that you get, which is going to give you more total gains when you're farming materials. The last stat that we're really going to be looking at is going to be mob respawn. This is a very minor gain, but when you get to the end game and your character is kind of maxed out and you're looking for just those little bit of gains to get a little bit more, mob respawn is what's going to boost the Elemental Sorcerer just a little bit farther. First up, let's talk about your equipment. This includes the equipment tab, tools tab, and food tab. All of these increase the stats on your character, which is going to give you more gains for your Elemental Sorcerer. So for your armor and weapon, the main thing is equip the best that you have. So if you can get to troll or magma gear at the minimum, it's really going to increase your kills per hour. So I recommend doing that as soon as you can. But the current best in slot is the God Shard gear in World 6. This set does have some of the best combination of bonuses that we've seen, including drop chance and multi-kill per tier. But if you can't get to that, that's all right. So for your weapon, it's the same thing. Use the best weapon you can. The primary reason is it gives you more damage and it also increases the speed of your attacks. So each tier you go up on your weapons, or mostly each tier, is going to make you attack faster, which is going to give you more kills per hour. So other than that, it does give you total damage and drop chance as well. For your pendant, you want to use the best in slot pendant is currently the Deathbloom Flower. This gives you more damage multi and mob respawn. So we're checking off 2 of the boxes of our 4 primary stats. If you don't have this pendant, you can use the Deathly Cluster pendant to give you mob respawn, or use something like the Divine Scarf or one of the previous scarfs. These do give you mob respawn and damage multipliers. However, we're not looking for AFK gain chance in an active build. So after that, we're talking about our rings. The best in slot is currently the Demented Emperor Opal. This does give you 10% all stats and a 1% damage multiplier. The next best in slot would be just the plain Emperor Opal from the Dungeon Flurbo shop. However, as soon as you can, upgrade this into the Demented Emperor Opal. After that, we're going to talk about the specials tab. This is things that are a little more particular. This is the Siege Captain cap, which gives you 10% drop chance. If you can upgrade with the premium stones to give you some more base stats, great. If not, it's okay. For your trophy, there are 2 that I can recommend. There are more out there that can be useful. However, best in slots are currently 1 of the Divine, which gives you 42% drop chance and more total damage. If you don't have that, you can use one of the Lucky Lad trophies. Luckier Lad gives you 50% drop chance and 5% luck, so it is a good increase to your drop chance as well. The basic Lucky Lad trophy is kind of the third option, which would give you 7% drop chance. Not as significant, but there you go. After that, for your cape or your cloak, you want to use the Molten Cloak if you have it for 30% drop chance. If not, look for like the Cheezor's wings that give you more damage. That's going to be kind of your best option if you don't have the Molten Cloak. For your name tag, there are 3 that I can recommend. The Ballin name tag gives you 40% drop chance. Great if you have it. Some of the other good ones are the 3rd Idleon Anniversary name tag, which gives you 3% drop chance, and then you also have the Mega Feather name tag to give you a 20% damage multi. There may be other options out there, but these are kind of my go-to recommendations. For your keychains, the best in slot is going to be the 25% drop rate keychains. I missed those in one of the limited shop specials, so I don't have them. So I'm using the second best in slot, which gives me 20% mob respawn per keychain. A third option would just be using something that increases your wisdom by a percentage. So my recommendations there. For the premium ring, the only one that currently gives us anything is going to be the Equinox ring that gives you 10% to all stats. This is not a big deal if you don't have a premium ring. Moving on to the tools tab, you really want to use the best in slot tools that you have. This is mostly for damage purposes, but if you can get to the God Shard tools, they do give you 10% drop chance per tool, so that really does add up if you can get all 6 of your tools to drop chance. Currently, getting to level 120 on your trapping is difficult, so you may not have it for all 6 of them. That's all right. We're just gaining more stats if we can equip them. For your food slots, the main thing that we're going to be looking for here is going to be the potions. Having Potent Potion of Speed to increase your speed up to the 350% movement speed cap is really good. If you don't need the potion speed, you can take this off and replace it with something to give you more damage, but this is something that most people will need. After that, the other potion I use is Potent Potion of Strength. This does increase your damage significantly. We're at 633,000 there, so we dropped by about 25 or so. So it does give us a decent boost to our damage by using those. After that, the main things that for golden foods, I recommend having the golden grilled cheese nomwiches to increase your base stats, the golden kebabs for a percentage to your damage, and then lastly, the golden cake, which increases your drop rarity. So the golden cake is the primary one that you need. However, remember to fill up your golden beanstalk before you're equipping these on your character, as the golden beanstalk does give your whole account these bonuses instead of just one character. I do, for the last slot, have the Sailing AFK gain time. This is because I'm currently trying to get my last premium artifact still, or my last sovereign artifact, not premium. So that's it for your equipment. Next up, let's move on to our talents. And as I'm going through this, I am just going to be maxing out each talent as I go. However, if you don't have enough talent points, be sure that you're splitting your talents between about the first 3 to 5 that I'm mentioning to be able to get the most out of everything as they all kind of work together. But the first things first is moving to tab 4 on the Elemental Sorcerer. Actually, this is going to be maxing out Symbols of Beyond, getting it to the nearest 20 levels. So at 240, 220, 200, they're all going to give you +1 talent levels to everything that you have at least 1 point in. So it's going to give you a little bit more gains across everything by doing this. But back to tab 1, our first priority is going to be Gilded Sword, Sharpened Axe, and Overclocked Energy. These are the biggest priorities here, and then we move on to more of the account-based progression. So if you need accuracy, your first priority is going to be into agility to get enough agility to get to the minimum accuracy that you need to be able to fight the mobs, to be able to hit 100% hit chance on the mob that you're fighting. So agility would be first. After that, Book of the Wise to give you more wisdom, which gives you more damage, mana, everything else. And then Mana Booster, which increases our mana for overclocked energy. After that is the more optional things like Lucky Clover to give you more luck, which does increase your drop rate, and then your active AFKer for when you're offline. So after that, everything is very optional, but Farsight does give you a little bit more damage if you do have the spare points. One big thing here is in tab 3 and 4, there are 2 talents that give you more max talent levels for Book of the Wise. So make sure that you have enough talent points on tab 1 before you're spending into the optional things. With that said, let's move on to tab 2, and this is going to start with Power Overwhelming for more damage, and Knowledge's Power to give you more damage from your wisdom, and Mana Overdrive as your third talent. So at this point, my recommendations kind of get split based on account progression. Untwisted Robes is best. However, if you're using like Dementia gear or lower end gear, then the individual insight is going to give you more wisdom. So max out Untwisted Robes and individual insight as soon as you can. At this point, we do want points in Mini Fireball, as there is something that gives us a little bit more damage that uses it without us using it. We're not going to assign this attack to the action bar, as it does just slow down us using our active skills that we want to use. Energy Bolt specifically can actually slow down your overall progression with the character. So if you do have points into this, make sure it is not on your active attack bar, as it will actually delay your kills per hour. So moving on to tab 3 next, this is going to start with Paperwork Great to give you more base damage based on your stamp collection, and then Mana is Life to give you more multi-kill per tier. After that, we do want points into Wiz Wumbo if you have enough points on tab 1 to continue leveling up Book of the Wise. And then our 2 active attack skills that are going to be huge for us is going to be Tornado and The Floor is Lava. This is going to give us some attacks that we'll look at in tab 4. So we want points into this, as they are great for clearing mobs in an AoE format. So after that, everything is more optional again. This is going to be things like Earlier Education if you need points into tab 2, and then Occult Obols to give you more wisdom from your obols, and lastly Ice Shards if you have the spare points left over. It's not great, but it does add a little bit to us. So from there, everything else is extremely optional. Only spend points if you've got the excess. Tab 4 is really where our build shines in. Our priority is going to be getting Dimensional Wormhole leveled up. So for Dimensional Wormhole, we actually want 332 points into this. Let me get there very quickly. So one more point here. Our 331 actually works as well. For 109 seconds to the wormhole lifespan, this is going to match up with the cooldown of you actively using the skill. So basically, wormhole disappears, your cooldown's up, and you get to spawn a new one. This only works if you have the post office box maxed that decreases the cooldown, which we'll show you here in a little bit. You can go ahead and max this talent. It doesn't hurt, but it's just the way I am. I like it matching up with the cooldown. But anyways. So after that, our big priority is going to be Radiant Chain Bolt, as this is what really kills a lot of things for us in this build. So the more damage you have, the more effective Radiant Chain Bolt is, though, because it does decrease the damage after each bounce. So you need to make sure you have enough damage. After that is going to be Chaotic Force to increase the damage that you deal, because as you use your basic attacks, it automatically summons a tornado, or the floor is lava, or the fireball attack from tab 2 and 3. So this is just basically free AoE damage by having this maxed out the best you can. From here is going to be Utmost Intellect. This is going to give you more wisdom and a percentage, and increase the maximum talent level for Book of the Wise. So if you don't have enough in tab 1, it's not worth as much, but the percentage is still good for us. From here, I recommend putting points into Lightning Barrage and points into Meteor Shower. Now, one thing to mention with Meteor Shower is some people have noted that when you active for a very long time using Meteor Shower, it has a chance to desync your account, which means basically you're losing time that you were active, and you'll have to go back to cloud save to regain the offline time that your character accumulated because of the desync. So I don't personally recommend using Meteor Shower. However, if you need Meteor Shower to be able to clear mobs effectively, you may still get more out of it even with the desync issues. So that would be my next priority if you need to use it. From here, you can get some optional bonuses, such as increasing more wisdom from Skill Wiz, more kills per kills with the Memorial Skull. Believer Strength is decent. However, it's only 75 weapon power, which is a very small amount depending on your account progression. This is with a divinity level of 145 on this character, so your gains will vary depending on where your account is at. The Family Guy also has some decent bonuses, which also gives so it is worth it if you have the spare points left over. Lastly, it's going to be Wormhole Emperor, and this is going to give you more damage per power of 10 kills that you have from the wormhole mobs. So if you have a lot of wormhole kills, it's going to be more effective for you than not. So lastly is going to be our Star Talents tab. This is really dependent on where you're at in the game. So we're going to start with tab 1 here. The first priority is going to be into a goblet of hemoglobin, which is going to give you a chance to heal whenever you kill a mob, which decreases the need for actually using food on your active characters. After that, attacks on Simmer is really good, and then we want points in Will of the Eldest and the beginner best class, depending on where your highest level of each class is. From there, crystalline mobs can be okay. I don't recommend doing a crystal build for the elemental sorcerer, as they do have more health and it can actually slow down your kills if you can't one-shot them. So be careful on that. It is good to do Quest Chungus up to the amount of points that you need to be able to get more luck as a basic increase for your account. Moving on to tab 2, this is going to be primarily dungeonic damage and mega crit. I do recommend having points into Frothy Malk, and then everything else becomes pretty optional at this point. Pulsation can help with mana regeneration rates at lower levels. Cardiovascular for card drop chance, class EXP. Everything else is pretty optional at this point. One thing that to note is that telekinetic storage does give you more carry capacity, so maxing that out and getting another 13% isn't a bad option, because you will be farming a ton of materials with this class. Moving on to tab 3, this is going to be really depending on where you're at. Overactive crit is also very nice, similar to mega crit. Filthy damage depending on how much garbage you've collected. Rando that gives you AFK gain rates we don't need. Stat overload gives you another 300 basic stats for wisdom, and then the all stats from the dummy thick stats is kind of nice depending on where you're at. Currently 5.6% more all stats, so it's a nice bonus for me. After that, moving on to tab 4, we do have multi-kill from Monolithism, which gives you more multi-kill based on your Onyx statues. Boss battle spillover. One thing to mention on this is no matter how many points you put into this, if you haven't done the boss kills for the week, it does not give you any drop rate. So make sure that you are doing the weekly boss if you're going to put points into boss battle spillover. After that, you can get Dreamer damage for more damage per Equinox Cloud that you've completed. So that's it for our talents. While we're talking about our talents, let's go ahead and assign our active attack bar. So to do this, click Assign Attacks and make sure that you're on Action Bar 1. This matters because it uses attacks in the order that you've assigned. So the order that you assign is the priority it uses them. So first up is going to be the Wormhole we want on slot number 1, and then on slot number 2, we want Mana is Life. After that, we want Radiant Chainbolt and Lightning Barrage as our next 2 attacks. And then if you're going to use the Meteor, it would be the 5th slot. But if not, move on to tab 3, and we want the Tornado and Floor is Lava as our first action bar. If you're going to continue with this, continue assigning attacks, move down to bar number 2, and we want Ice Shards, and then lastly, Fireball if you're going to use it. I don't recommend having Fireball or Ice Shards on your bar, but they can give you some very small gains. I've noticed that it delays my kills because of the amount of damage that I can do. So just be careful on that, and let's move on to our cards. For your card sets, this depends on how much damage you have on your character. If you have enough damage to consistently get 120 kills on your Wormhole, I recommend going for a full drop rate card set. The other option would be if you don't have enough damage, then you can go towards something that's more like this. That's going to give you more multi-kill, more total damage, a little bit of drop rate. So this is going to increase your total damage and your multi-kill, which is going to help give you a little bit more than just the pure drop rate would. However, if you have enough damage, then it becomes more about the drop rate to get more out of your mobs that you're killing. So with the full drop rate setup, it's currently 399% total drop rate. This is by using the Emperor's card, which gives you 72% total drop rate. However, this is only available from card packs currently. So if you don't have this, then you would be switching out the Emperor card for the Mimic card. The other cards that I'm using is going to be the Mini Chief Spirit, which will be your second highest drop rate, King Doot for 36%, Mr. Brightside for another 36%, Your Giftmas Blobulite and Mr. Blueberry both give you 18%. And lastly, I'm using the Bot Box from World 3 to give me an additional 21%. If you don't have the Emperor's card, you can use the Mimic card to give you 12%, which will help balance things out. One other thing that people recommend is going to be using the Crystal Mob spawn chances from the Poop card and the Demon Genie card. This is going to allow more mobs to spawn. However, I personally avoid them as I don't want Crystal Mobs spawning while I'm killing. If you don't have enough damage, it can actually significantly reduce the amount that you're killing because it increases the health of the mobs on the Crystal Mobs have more health, so it takes longer to kill them, and it can prevent you from doing more damage to the wormhole mobs. So just keep that in mind. If you're able to one-shot crystals, it's not as much of a deficit, but that's my recommendation. For your star signs, there are a lot of different options depending on what you need. The setup that I'm currently using is using the 12% drop rarity from Seraph tab, as well as the carry capacity gains on the Chronos tab. This gives me 40% carry capacity as well as the 12% drop rate, which allows me to stack up materials a little bit better. So other options would include going for a pure damage build, which would include the 25% total damage. From here, 15% from Overachiever and 20% from the Boltwork, which would give you a total of 60% more total damage. So that's one option. Make sure you're avoiding anything that is fight AFK gains, as we're not going to be AFK on this build. You could go with the more drop rarity from Pirate Booty. It really just depends on what you need to max out your account, but this is the setup that I currently use to get that extra carry capacity. To quickly go through the world, starting in World 1, for our stamps, we want to have basically everything in the combat tab leveled up as much as we can, as they are all helpful in some way. But the main things that I would look for are anything that increases your wisdom, anything that increases your total damage or drop rate. And then for your other tabs, you're looking for material capacity from Matty Bag Stamp. Your miscellaneous tab has Mason Jar. You have Golden Food Effect from the Golden Apple Stamp. And then lastly at the bottom, you also have the Multi-Kill Stamp. For your statues, the main thing we're looking for are the things at the top, including base damage, movement speed, food effect, health, crit damage, and the list kind of goes on for statues. So leveling up your statues as you can will be effective in helping your elemental sorcerer. Starting in World 2 with Alchemy. Alchemy is a huge thing. There are too many bubbles for me to name them all, but some that can really help you out. Leveling up your Stable Genius and Mage is Best early game can give you a lot more wisdom. The higher that you get it, the more effective that it's going to be. You also have Name My Guest that gives you more damage based on your maximum mana. Farther up, you have Smart Boy Talent to give you more talent points for the Elemental Sorcerer. You also have the Hyper Swift to give you more basic attack speed. Wand Power for more weapon power. You have Power of Tri-3 to give you more total damage based on your wisdom. This is a huge increase as you can get 10, 20, 30, 50,000 more wisdom, and then that number just multiplies like crazy. Some of the other colored stamps that make a difference, things like Quick Slap to give you more base damage based on your movement speed, which makes that potion that much more effective. With 750 movement speed, it adds up quite quickly. Shakracy is a very big deal early game until it's not, but getting enough accuracy and not having to waste your points into your talent points into wisdom or into agility is a big deal. For the orange tab, you have FMJ that gives you more defense, which means you don't need your armor leveled up as high early game. Can make a big difference for you. And then the other one I would mention for the orange is the Shimmeron to give you more gold food effect. There are more bubbles that will affect things that you're doing. However, those are some of the ones that I would pay attention to. In the post office, there are two main boxes that I would look at. Everything else is pretty much pretty optional, so invest the points where you want to afterwards. But the two boxes that I would look at is the mana box to give you more max mana, which helps increase your damage with overclocked energy. It also gives you 10% faster cooldowns to use your abilities more frequently. And then also the non-predatory loot box does give you more drop rarity. Everything else like Civil War memory box or the death storage unit does give you more damage, but it's pretty optional. until you get to the Myriad crate, which does give you quite a bit of base stats as well. In World 3, there's not much that you can really level up other than the Salt Lick. This does give you some bonuses like more movement speed, multi-kill rate, and total damage, depending on what you can max out. But one thing to pay attention to would be the amount of multi-kill that you have in each world, as this multi-kill per damage tier can add up quite a bit to give you more loot drop. So make sure that you are getting as many skull points as you can on your multi-kill per tier. So it may be worth going through and farming some of each mob to increase your total multi-kill. The other thing would be the Atom Collider does have the neon damage to give you more total damage. And then the last thing is more of a quality of life feature, which is the prayers that you have selected. The main thing that I recommend is having Rucksack on for your Elemental Sorcerer, as having this extra carry capacity is kind of a big deal because you can farm multiple millions and fill up your inventory within a few minutes if you have a proper build and just don't have enough carry capacity. So keep that in mind. Using things like Balance of Pain to give you more multi-kill per damage tier also can help, but this does reduce your defense and accuracy, so just be careful with that. One last thing to mention is that any of the things that increase the max HP of all monsters is a very bad idea on the Elemental Sorcerer, as the mobs in the wormhole can scale off of this as well. So it will drastically decrease the amount of kills that you'll get in your wormhole by increasing the max HP of the monsters. In World 4, the main thing we're looking at is going to be the laboratory chips. So in the laboratory, I recommend equipping any of your doublers on the character that you're farming on. So for this, I have the 2 card doublers and then all 4 of the orange doubler slots, and then one other chip that can be useful for you. So the doublers are going to be the top left card slot, the bottom right card slot, doubling your pendant, the keychain, and also the trophy, and then the active star signs that you have. So the 3 star signs that you selected can be doubled even if you have infinite star signs. The last chip is going to be kind of more optional, and it depends on what you would like. If you're going for a crystal farming build, then having the Choco chip does give you many more crystals. And then the other options would be things like attack speed, monster respawn, or the multi-kill per damage tier. So these are your options that I would use, but for the most part, you want the doubler chips and then filling in with anything else that you have. In World 5, the main thing here would be if you need to select a Divinity God, if you don't have the King Duke Companion, the primary one that I would probably select on this would probably be Nubisect for the total damage bonus. But depending on your account progression, then Arctis may be better for you with the talent levels. 15 extra talent levels can add up quite quickly for you. Everything else is pretty optional. If you need accuracy and defense, then the Snake isn't too bad, but anything else isn't really going to increase your active character gains. In World 6, it's more about passive bonuses that you get from your skills, and this is going to be things from the farming where you can get more damage and also money. However, money is not a focus for the Elemental Sorcerer. I recommend the Divine Knight or the Bubo to money farm instead, but it can add up a little bit more for you as you're farming. Other than that, your summoning bonuses can also give you more total damage, 192% drop rate. You also have 28% all stats and 28% to your max talent library level. So those can all be relatively useful for your Elemental Sorcerer. Remember to hit that like and subscribe button and drop a comment if you're enjoying our videos. And a huge shout out to our patrons. Your support means the world to us. And if you would like to become a patron, check out the link in the description for more details. And be sure to visit our merch store so you can get some pretty cool stuff. If you have any thoughts or questions, let us know down below, and we'll see you next time.